Hi, so today I'm going to explain how I prepared for the French SAT 2 subject test. So I took the French SAT in the beginning of June. Before then, I'd studied French for about a year and a half, so I had a pretty strong base in grammar, basic vocabulary comprehension. But I wanted to make sure that I'd be able to get a good score on the test, so I looked at the format of the test, and turns out there's just multiple choice in vocab and grammar, and reading comprehension. So no listening and no speaking. So right away I knew that the hardest part would be the vocab. I think for anyone really, vocab would be the hardest part because there's no way you can know every single word in the language. And I knew there would be a lot of words that I hadn't been exposed to because I've only had so much exposure in that year and a half of study. Grammar was not going to be as difficult because I'd already covered pretty much the majority of uh, grammar that would be on the test. So I knew that I would have to focus the most on vocab. So to do that, I figured the best way to learn vocab is just to read because I'm already at an intermediate to advanced level in French. So how was I going to learn this vocab? Well, I wasn't going to use lists or textbook vocab fill in the blank exercises because I don't need to. I'm already at a stage where I can use authentic French material, so why not use that ability I have to learn new words? So what I decided to do was just read as much French as possible. So I started preparing on May 8th, and my test was June 3rd or 4th. So that gave me a month, a little less than a month. So I just decided to read as much as possible, but not just any French, because the vocab that's on the French SAT is not just arbitrary vocab, it's not, for example, literary vocab that you would find in novels or plays. It's more suited towards vocab that you would find in newspaper articles, TV shows, casual conversation. So what I chose to do was read as many French articles as possible in that month to try to absorb as much new vocab as possible. Why? Because the vocab that's used in French articles is authentic, it's natural speech because it's written by natives, and also it can be very specialized, but it can also be very broad. So say let's say I didn't know a lot of French vocab related to sports. Well, I'd just go read a bunch of French sports articles. If I didn't know a lot about scientific vocabulary, I'd go read a bunch of science articles. So that's exactly what I did. So I'll show you these articles and I'll show you how exactly I read them. So in the span of 1 month, I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 French articles. But when I say read, see, like, I wouldn't read a French article the same way I read an English article. An English article, I basically just, I read it, I'm done. Not with French articles, though, because French articles, each article is like a mini textbook because it contains so much information about vocabulary and grammar. So what I did is, I found an article, not just any article, an article that I was interested in. So what I didn't do is I didn't read just any random article. So I only read stuff that I'm interested in, which can be bad, but it's also more interesting and more fun. So I didn't read anything about politics. I didn't read anything about like what was going on in the Middle East or in Russia or Ukraine. Not that I don't like that stuff, but I find other things just more interesting. That's just what I like more. So I read a lot of science articles, So this one is about sleep deprivation. So what I do is I go through the article and basically underline each word that I don't know. So I don't know if you can see. La privation, I underline that. And then above, okay, so see in this first paragraph I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words or phrases underlined, right? So for some words that are kind of like cognates, like privation, that kind of sounds like deprivation, like deprivation. So for those, I didn't write the definition because I figured that the next time I read it, I'd be able to guess the meaning because I'd already looked it up. So basically, the process is you read, find a word, you encounter a word that you don't know, privation, look it up. It turns out that means deprivation. So I told myself, well, next time I see that in this article, I'll remember that it means like deprivation because it's spelled like deprivation, so I don't need to write the meaning of that. But this word, nuiser, means interfered, right? It's a verb. So that does not, it's not like a cognate or anything, so it would be hard for me to figure out. So that's why I wrote the definition above. So I would do that for the entire article, right? Just go through every single thing. This is a pretty long article, 3-4 pages. So once you have that, make sure you know every single word in here and also every single grammatical sentence structure. So if you don't understand the sentence structure, try to figure out the grammar behind it. So something like this, I could spend a whole day on this. A whole day meaning like maybe like anywhere from half an hour to an hour on this. So this isn't something like in English I could go through this whole thing in like 5 to 10 minutes, but in French you have to dissect every single word and sentence. So I did that for basically all the articles. Like I just went through underlining and writing definitions over things I didn't know. And then it's important not to just forget about the articles you've already read, but you have to go and revise them. So say this isn't the order of articles I read, but say I read this first, this second, this third. So after I read this fourth article, I'll go back to these first three and review them. Spaced repetition helps ingrain the vocab words, the new vocab words in your head. Some articles are harder than others. Like this one, this had a lot of idiomatic expressions that I didn't know. Like even in the title, like gueule de bois, that's hangover. So this entire article, I have a lot of underlined things because the vocab was kind of esoteric. But other articles, like maybe this one, I didn't have to underline as much because I was able to get through that faster. So I figured that the SAT would test you on the most commonly used French words. And one way to find the most commonly used French words was to go through authentic French material, which is what I did. And if I were to come across something on the test that I had never seen before, it would probably be because it was about something that I did not read an article about, or something that I had never been exposed to, like, I don't know, historical terminology, I don't know, animals, farm terminology, something obscure like that. But you know, that's one thing about language tests that I don't like. Sometimes the questions are too obscure and not practical. But anyway, this is what I did. 13 articles. Who knows how many words I learned? I didn't count them, but I definitely learned a lot. I added to my passive vocabulary and active vocabulary, and I got an 800 on the test. So I definitely wouldn't have gotten an 800 before this prep because I just wouldn't have known the same number of words. So I recommend this to anyone who is at a level where they can read articles and understand anywhere from 70 to 100%. And yes, it's definitely a very useful strategy. So thank you for listening.